Good morning and welcome to our English lesson today. And in our English lesson today, we are going to talk about we are going to deal with composition. And under composition, we are going to deal with mistakes in writing. When you have to write, or the mistakes you commit when you are writing. When I mark your compositions, I come across some mistakes that mistakes that you can avoid if you just paid attention. I've talked about ways composition writing, and every time when I talk about composition writing, I emphasize on handwriting. Why is handwriting very important? Because handwriting is like your handwriting is like what you are dressing or what you put on. Sometimes people are going to judge you by the way you dress by your appearance, how you look, how you take care of yourself. When you collect your book or when you're writing your compositions, what is the first thing that a person who is marking your composition sees? Your handwriting. And your handwriting can put over marker, or it can be appealing. I've said more than once. If you are a candidate, you choose if you want to write well and get marks, or you don't want to write well and do not get the marks. It is a choice. But again, when it comes to handwriting, I've told you people should be paying more attention when it comes to writing letters that look the same when they are small, and then when they are when they are in small letters and when they are in capital letters. You have W, and then you have M, you have K, then you have small k. So you should also know how to shape this letter when it comes to composition. A good composition writer or a good handwriting is simply someone knowing how to shape the letters of the alphabet the way they are supposed to be shaped. How do you punctuate your work when it comes to writing? And when it also comes to writing, how do you introduce your composition, the introduction of your composition? Do you have the flow of ideas? Are you relevant? Do you know how to conclude your composition? I've given out concluding phrases for composition. I've given out expressions to show a short period or to describe a short period of time. We have to introduction of a composition, and when it comes to the introduction of a composition, I say it is the first part of this composition. How should the first part of your composition be looking? It should be appealing to the marker, so that whoever is marking your composition knows exactly what you are writing, or somebody has a positive attitude, like they know this person can write this composition. And you realize that in most of our exams we are given the beginning, you're supposed to continue it and then come up with the whole composition and your own ending. So when you have been given the beginning of a composition, I say continue the word with not more than 5 or 6 words, unless it's an expression, or unless it's a figure of speech, because you cannot cut out some words from a figure of speech. Like I cannot say Hari has no, and then I omit blessing because the teacher said you cannot continue the composition using 5 words. No. If it's a figure of speech, you just continue the whole part, and then you move on to the next paragraph. Your continuation should be captivating, should be eye-catching, should be appealing to the marker, somebody who's going to mark your work. But how is this composition going to look well? If your handwriting is what? If your handwriting is good. But if you don't have a good handwriting, you realize that you can be a good writer, but you don't have a good handwriting. And not having a good handwriting is simply not knowing how to shape the letters of the alphabet. Some people cannot write H, so they write H like it is a chair. Some people cannot write capital T and then write small t. Some people write T like that. So it depends. It also you've learned like the letters of the alphabet. Everyone knows how to write capital and small letters of the letters of the alphabet. So I've said, you choose. If you are a candidate, do you want to get this marks I don't want to get this marks. And it only begins with you writing well, with you writing well. Under writing, we are going to talk of mistakes that people commit when they write. When I was looking at compositions, I came across this and I was like, okay, let's deal with this today. So mistakes in writing, number one, is disjointing of words. What is disjointing of words? This occurs when words cannot fit at the end of a line, cannot fit at the end of the line. So you have this. I've come here with something. I want to give an example. We can say, Amina was walking. Amina was walking. Amina was walking. Let's come here. You say Amina is a proper noun. We talked about punctuation. Amina is a proper noun. It is coming at the beginning of a sentence. It begins with a capital letter. Amina was walking. Amina was walking when she did this when she disappeared. So you can have Amina was walking when she disappeared. So this is what happens. This is what I'm trying to say. Because disappear cannot fit at the end of my line. What did I come up with? I have this, and then I have a small dash, and then I've come to write here appeared. So I end up having these two words, this and appeared. This and what? Appeared. You realize that appeared is an English word on its own. So this is you are ending up forming two different words from one word. And I see this mistake in most compositions. I know you've been maybe taught that you are supposed to simply write this and then a dash, and then you come here and continue, and then you come here and write for example, write appear. No, do you see that? So what you are supposed to do is, if a word cannot fit here, if for example I want to write the word disappeared, for example, let's say I want to write the word disappeared. Amina was walking when she, my word cannot fit there. So what I simply come here and say when she disappeared. So I simply come here and write when she disappeared. So you're having single S double P, then you say disappeared. Instead of having, or I say I saw my I want to write my grandmother. I saw my grand, and then you have grand dash, and then you come here and write ma, and then you have to write mother. So you're coming up with grand, and then you're coming up with mother. That's what we call disjointing of what? Disjointing of words. Separating words. But you can avoid this. How do you avoid this? Simply look at the space that you are remaining with. Is that space enough to write the word I want to write? No or yes? If it is no, then instead of writing here grand and then having a dash to write mother, what you're supposed to do is simply say, leave that space. I saw my, you leave that space and then simply come to the next line and say, I saw my grandmother early that morning. I saw my grandmother early that morning. Are you getting that? Now, if this space is not enough, leave it. Nobody's going to penalize you for leaving a space and then coming to write the whole word on the next line. We call it disjointing of what? Disjointing of what? And it is a mistake in writing. I've seen it in most of your conversations. Stop doing it. Do not disjoin the words. It simply means separating words. If a word cannot fit at the end of a line, then simply come and write it here. Write it on the next line, instead of separating them, so that you come up with two different words, or you end up forming one word, which is correct actually maybe in English. For example, this up and then peer. This is an English word, speaking. You want to write the word speaking, so you write speak, and then you have a dash, and then you come here and write king. You see, You ended up forming a new one. This is king. It is an English word. It is an English word. So do not separate. If I want to write the word speaking and I realize my space or the space that is left is not enough, what I do is I simply do not write the word speaking there at the end of the line. Instead, I come and write it at the beginning of a line. I hope we are clear. So people, do not repeat the mistake of disjoining the words. I see it in most of your compositions. Don't do it. And then careless pencil marks. I've given here an example. I said I for first person is always in capital letters, in capital. And then you have a full stop, something that looks like a comma, came to school. Then you have something like a colon, on, a school on. Then you have a tilde, something like a comma. And it is no joke, because when I mark your composition, I see this. I see the unnecessary pencil marks. And when these unnecessary pencil marks are in a composition, they appear like what? Punctuation mark. So what happens if your composition is being marked? You come up with the wrong punctuation. You come up with the wrong punctuation of your work. Why do people have unnecessary marks in their composition? People have these unnecessary marks in their composition because they don't sit down. Maybe you have been given an ending of a composition, or you have been given the beginning of a composition, or maybe you have been given a topic and you're supposed to write. What causes careless pencil marks is, one, you don't sit down. Take like 3 minutes of your time or 5 minutes of the 40 minutes you have to write the composition to think about the composition, to come up with whatever you're supposed to write. You simply pick a pencil and then start writing. What happens if you don't think about this composition and come up with what you want to write? So that you plan your work, you know what you're going to write. You come up with the expressions you're supposed to use in the composition. Find out if you have an example of a proverb that you can use. Arrange your ideas before you begin writing the composition. What happens is that if you don't do that, if you don't think about the composition, you end up writing the composition and then you, for example, you stop in between the sentences so that you have to think. I came to school on Monday morning. So you say on Monday morning, and then I came, you have here, you stop, came, you have now something like a comma using your pencil, and then to school on a chilly Monday morning, This happens using of, we have what careless pencil mark happen in composition if you don't think about what you're supposed to write in advance. So that when you go and put it on paper, your work actually flows. Like you don't have to stop in between the words and then leave your pencil there, so that when you start writing, you've left a mark. That example looks like a full stop, Your mark for wrong punctuation, You want to avoid careless pencil marks. What you have to do is simply think about what you're supposed to write. Make a summary or have guiding questions before you begin writing. Don't do that in composition. And then mistake number 3 is use of abbreviation. And I've seen this in most compositions. So somebody is writing, I went to the market and bought mangoes. I bought mangoes, comma, a comma in a list, tomatoes, comma, potatoes, you have potatoes, etc. Potatoes, and to end the list. So you say etc. Or and many more others. Etc simply means what? And many more others. And this also happens in composition. Somebody says, I went to the market to buy mangoes, tomatoes, comma, potatoes, and many more others in composition. And then if I am marking your work, I'm simply like, many more others. Do you expect me to know what you bought on the market if you don't tell me what you bought? No. Like, I'm not supposed to fill in the gaps for you. You're supposed to write. You are writing a composition. You're supposed to write. The person marking your composition is not supposed to fill in the blanks for you. Like, I'm not supposed to know you went to the market to buy mangoes, tomatoes, potatoes, and many others. Maybe you bought carrots, maybe you bought onions, maybe you bought a cabbage. I'm not supposed to fill in for you. What you're supposed to do is give us the whole list, so that you don't say and many more others or et or etc to end the list. How about you simply have the correct thing? I went to the market to buy potatoes, tomatoes, mangoes, tomatoes, potatoes, and carrots. Just end the list like a person in class 8 who is ready to do their KCP. The KCP simply end the list: mangoes, tomatoes, potatoes, and carrots. So you don't use abbreviations in composition. Abbreviations actually make you look less when you are writing the composition. And a learner is not supposed to use abbreviations in their composition for their own good, not for the teachers or whoever is marking their works good. The moment you avoid abbreviations, some abbreviations actually, for example, let's say you have KCPE, it's an abbreviation for Kenya Certificate of Primary School Education. Now, if you write this and somebody else is writing Kenya, you come up with certificate. So the person who is writing KCP in full ends up with the correct length of the composition. But if you use abbreviations in composition, then you also don't come up with the correct length of a composition. That's why you see some learners with a lot of abbreviations or clipped ideas in their composition, coming up with only either one page or even less than 1 page of the composition. Do not use abbreviations in composition. And these abbreviations are like e.g., i.e., etc. Like to give explanation, i.e., no. Don't do that. Don't use abbreviations in composition. etc., e.g., and many more others, i.e., to give explanation. And they are not the only abbreviations. I've talked of KCPE. I've talked of maybe someone wants to write who, like you want to write World Health Organization in composition. No, simply write World Health Organization. Don't write the UA. Simply write the United Nations, so that you have United Nations. So that in full, don't use abbreviations in composition. It's for the better. It's for your own good as a learner, because you end up coming up with the correct length of a composition. Then we have poor use of tenses. I've taught here direct speech. I've taught direct speech. I've taught of passive and active voice. There is no way you are going to answer a question on direct and indirect speech or passive and active voice if you don't know tenses. There is no way. Because the present simple tense, direct speech, changes to the past simple tense, indirect. Present continuous tense, direct speech, changes to the past continuous tense, direct speech. Present simple tense, passive voice, changes to the past participle by use of is or are. I don't know if somebody is going to be in a position to answer questions on direct speech or passive and active voice if they don't know tenses. Person should be able to know the difference between a present tense, present tense. Somebody should be able to know a past tense, the past tense, and then somebody should be in a position to know the future tense. Future tense by use of will and shall. Will for second person, third person singular and plural, and will for first person singular and plural. People should be in a position to know the tenses. You are writing a composition. Is the activities in that composition taking place at that time, took place, or will take place in the future? Somebody should be in a position to know the present tense. And when we talk of the present tense, do you know the present continuous? Do you know the present perfect? Do you know the present perfect continuous? You past tense, do you know the past tense? Past simple. Do you know the past continuous? Do you know the past perfect? Do you know the past perfect continuous? If you have notes on direct and indirect speech or passive and active voice, then you know what these tenses are, what the tenses are. The future perfect simple, you know which tense is which. So if you are in a position to differentiate the tenses, then you are able to come up with correct tense work when it comes to composition. Because most learners are going to come up with the wrong tenses because you do the present continuous, or when somebody should use the past continuous, or when should I be using the future tense. Some learners do not know that. So you go back to your notes on direct and indirect speech, passive and active voice, come up with the correct tenses. Then we have pronoun interchange or mix-up. Pronoun interchange or mix-up. Our number 5 is pronoun interchange or mix-up. What is a pronoun interchange or a mix-up? This is what I mean. You give a feminine pronoun to male characters in your composition. My father is a teacher. My father is a teacher. Full stop. She teaches. My father is a teacher. She teaches in whatever school. So this is your father, and you are giving them the pronoun she, which is female. Your father is male. Your father is male. And then you are giving them she, which is female. And this is a lot in your composition. You not know when to give feminine pronouns to female, when to give male pronouns to male. This is your father. Instead of she, it will be a he. That's what we call pronoun interchange or mix-up. Or somebody is saying, my mother is a teacher. My mother is a teacher. Then here, instead of saying she teaches, you say he teaches. That's what we call pronoun interchange. And if you mess up these things in composition, it is easy to rectify them. How do you rectify them? After writing your composition, go back and read. Proofread your work. The moment you proofread your work, you'll just realize that maybe you'll end up correcting some mistakes that you committed while writing, and you didn't know you had committed them. So any moment you are using, learner should be in a position to differentiate between feminine and male pronoun, and those ones that are unanimous, they can be used with male, and they can also be used with the female characters in a composition. Now, next one is unnecessary repetition. How does unnecessary repetition come across? When you have a noun directly followed by a pronoun. For example, my mother, and this is in your composition. Most of you do this mistake. My mother, she eats bananas. My mother, she eats bananas. So you're having your mother, which is a common noun, followed by a pronoun. This is what we call unnecessary repetition. Unnecessary what? Repetition. My mother eats bananas. This sentence is correct without the she. And you can simply know this. If you have a noun, do you know examples of noun? Indefinite, we have indefinite nouns. We have we can divide nouns in so many ways: singular and plural, compound, singular and plural. Those ones that we have common and what? Common and proper. It depends how you are going to subdivide your nouns. But we have proper nouns, common nouns, collective nouns. Now, and then when it comes to here, to this part of the sentence, do you know if mother is a noun in a sentence or not? If you can identify the noun in a sentence and you are writing your composition, just make sure that the word that follows is not a pronoun, so that you don't come up with what? Unnecessary repetition. Unnecessary what? Repetition. And then we have poor use of words to describe an activity. Poor use of words to describe an activity. For example, we have wow. She passed the exam. Wow, she passed the exam. Closing speech marks. She passed the exams, closing speech mark, full stop, then closing speech marks. And then you say, asked mother. asked, mother. Wow. Which one should be here? Instead of asked, it should be exclaimed. Why should it be exclaimed? Because you have an exclamation mark. An exclamation mark. So some people use asked instead of said, and people use ordered instead of what? Requested. Requested. When do we request? When we use polite what? When we use polite words. So when you are writing your composition, like this week's composition, I just hope that people are going to pay attention to the mistakes that they commit when they are writing. Have a good day.